Hey friends, it's Mark from Slot Journal. Good to see you again. You know, we deal a lot with terrain and you can use it for a lot of different things. Obviously, it makes your track look good. Plus, it adds context to your racing as far as, where's your race happening, hills, valleys, all the kind of things that go in a racetrack. It helps make it complete. But you can use terrain for some other things too. Today I'm going to show you a little bit about how I used it for some very helpful things. So as construction of my track, began, one thing I knew, I had this one section on the high end of the track, and you can see in these pictures where, there was going to be a long cliff from the upper curve heading back down the edge of the track. And, typically this gets, filled in with various materials, and then like a kind of paper forms, and then plaster cloth, and then it gets landscaped. And as I looked at that cliff that was going to be there, this is like at least a 4-foot section of track and a little bit more. I thought that's going to be really boring. What can I do to, fill that in, put something interesting in the space other than, cliffs, rocks, and trees and whatever. So I started to do a little bit of research, trying to think, what could I put in this area that would make sense, that would be realistic. I didn't want to put anything that wouldn't make sense. And this being Switzerland, I thought, well, I'd start there, and in a mountain area, what might you find there that I could slip in here? So in trying to find a solution, I went online like I usually do, and I found a story that talked about Switzerland in the mountains, that they have large amounts of military bunkers in the mountains there. I guess the construction of these go back to even before World War II, but especially in World War II, because even though Switzerland is traditionally a neutral country, they were still afraid that Hitler might invade them. So to make that a little less appetizing for the German army, they decided to put up a lot of bunkers in all the mountains throughout the country, transforming the whole country into a fortress. Also, I guess during the Cold War, they built additional bunkers and shelters. In fact, they built enough of them to house their entire population should there be a possible nuclear war. Now, over the intervening years, most of these bunkers just fell into disuse. Most of them were decommissioned. In fact, a lot of them have been reused. They've used them for data centers, for computers. They're very secure. Mushroom farms, because they're underground. Places to store wine. Even some of them have been transformed into private homes. But a lot of them are still out there. In fact, the Army, I guess, has been studying how to reintegrate them into the country's defense plans. And that, I guess, process started since the invasion of Ukraine. But in any case, you can see some pictures there I gathered to try to get what these look like. And I thought, well, there's a solution. There's something I could put in place and maybe use that to fill this space. Then the other thing I thought, a lot of mountains, there are a lot of hydroelectric facilities in mountains. Rivers, lakes, even, water runs underground through mountains and in the mountains. And I thought that might be another solution. I could put a facility there and do some things there to make another structure that I could make to make the mountain a little bit more interesting than just, again, plain rocks and stone. So as I typically do, I start making the landforms. I use cardboard strips, paper, taped together, whatever, to get the basic shapes I want. And there's actually some videos on this I'll highlight later on, show you, the exact techniques I use there. But you build up that mountain. And then what I do for these buildings, I'll build a frame because I want these buildings to be removable. The main purpose here is, and you can see, I've got wiring that goes underneath the track. Underneath my track, there's a lot of storage underneath, and I didn't want to be getting under there, having wires get in the way of all that stuff. So I wanted to keep it underneath the road surface, but above the surface for the entire track. So these openings allow for that. And then as the process normally goes, you can see I cover those molding those shapes with plenty of plaster sheeting, and then add texture to that, and then get that basic form in place for the mountains. And then it'll follow the process of going ahead and painting, getting the coloration, the texture just right, and adding color and plants and everything to make it look right. Now to create the facade of the bunker structure, basically I just used a box. I bought this at a craft store because again I wanted to be able to remove the facade after it was constructed. So it's modified with some card stock and a little bit of foam core board, again to make it look like a bunker. Just look at some pictures of some. It's not that hard to do. Did a similar situation with the hydroelectric plant, except there I actually textured to make it look like brick or stone in the front of that. So once that's built, it's put it in place to test to see what it looks like, and then we're ready to finish off the rest of the hillside and get everything ready for additional scenery. So once everything is in place and complete, we can add some figures. Here we got a guy taking a picture of his girlfriend outside the bunker, and we move down along the hillside there. Now we have the hydroelectric facility. You have a couple workers working there, and you can see the pipeline that leads into the city to deliver the water supply. Now, let's see what these structures reveal. So here's my mountain bunker. What is hiding behind it? Let's take a look. Having a space like this in your scenery is very helpful. You can hide all kinds of things in here. You have access to wiring, but it's also a great place to hide your porn. Oh, slot car porn. I mean, what did you think I meant? Let's put these away. This way I can access all my wiring and no one knows it's there. Let's look at another section. And here we have the hydroelectric station that serves the town. You can see the large pipeline that comes down from out of the mountain. The hydroelectric plant, we have 2 workers coming out. But what could be hiding in this one? Let's take a look. More wiring. That'll provide some useful access. Let's look further. What else could be in here? Oh! It's a great place to hide your beers. That'll be tasty later. So the most recent addition to the Slot Journal Garage is this Maserati. Very nice electric car, used but in very lightly used condition. And I saw it and I just had to have it. And if you're wondering why, it's because that Swiss flag in the window, it says Swiss team on the car. And for my track, that's a real plus. Specifically, this car is a Maserati Trofeo. It is Scalextric number C3511. The drivers were Cesare and Bettini. And I think the actual race car dates from 2013. But again, this is a kind of a super resistant car, which is fine for my track. It's, I like to have these sometimes when newer drivers come around. But still looks very, very good as it is, and I like it. And what we're going to do next is we're going to do a little test run, run a few laps. I've done some inspections, so it looks good and ready to roll. So we'll do a few laps, see what this car can do, and get some times, and just get a feel for how it's going to handle. So overall, this car is a pretty smooth runner. There's a little bit of that high-pitched scale extra whine, but overall the car ran fairly quiet. For some reason, I don't know, the audio on this camera really brings out some of those low resonances in the track, so I don't know, but it's not as loud as it sounds when you're actually running cars. I would note the track is a little bit cold in the basement. I think the track surface was about 61 degrees, so I really didn't have a chance to warm up the tires too much. You notice we lost a little bit of grip around some of those corners, even though, yeah, this car has a magnet in it. You can push it and they get a little bit loose if you're not careful. But overall, the car ran pretty good. I was pretty happy with it. So running a few test laps here, I hit some pretty decent times. The average lap was just a hair under 7 seconds, which is okay. Not that great, but I think if this car had some, a little more warm-up time, get the tires a little warmed up, we'd be better off. I think the best lap of 6.63 is probably closer to what the average is on this car. We could probably maybe even do a little bit for that, but not bad. I mean, for a track like this, there's a fair amount of curves, some level changes, so this time really is pretty decent. Don't forget, if you like this kind of content, feel free to like and subscribe. You can also join us on Facebook at slot.journal. Pretty cool little car. Nothing extraordinary, but fun nonetheless, and that's what this hobby's about. Also wanted to take a minute to acknowledge the passing of Pat, somebody that everybody in the community knows. Really touched a lot of people while he was online through his YouTube channel, and just want to acknowledge that and thank him for all he did, and thank everybody for all the recognition and they've given him over the past weekend or so. It's well deserved. He was a good man, and he'll definitely be missed, and our hearts all go out to his family. I hope you found this episode interesting and a little bit entertaining. Next time we've got, again, more stuff out there. I got some lighting tricks to work on, and also I've teased a little bit about the garage / VIP building / grandstand structure that I'm working on for the track, and we'll get to that. That's probably the single biggest project on the track, so but that's to come. So until then, get out there, get on your tracks, have some fun, get that trigger and step on it.